Honored to be joined today by a man who recently returned to the ring, former WWE superstar Paul Burchill. Paul, welcome to Under the Ring Pro Wrestling Conversations. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So you've recently returned to the ring. I know you had a match against Gangrel, and you've recently popped up back in the NWA in a talking segment and in a match. Let's start with something all the fans want to know. How are you doing, and where have you been?
I'm good. I've been obviously I've stepped away from wrestling quite a while back, and just kind of was done with the WWE and kind of wanted to get the rest of my life started and going and everything, and just wrestling just kind of wasn't in the plans for me once I'd done with the company. So just been kind of busy. Time flew by getting careers established and that kind of thing, and a little bit of wrestling through the years here and there, just nothing regular. And just been kind of busy with family, to be honest.
Great. There was an article on the WWE website years back about you and your wife both getting into nursing. Is that what the last several years has been for you?
Yeah, so my wife always was and had always been doing, quite a bit of significant schooling. And for me, when I was done with WWE, I had already made plans to become a firefighter. And so just kind of led down that medical path all those years of schooling, and just kind of one thing after another, and just had to be in a very stepwise process. And we're both in the medical field. I'm a nurse practitioner. I've been that for a number of years now, and just kind of evolved through the years just into that role. So that was kind of always the plan, was to go that direction and have sort of a a career after wrestling, basically. And it went great. So that's kind of what I've been doing the last few years, and kind of establishing that. Obviously, the last few years were challenging, being in the medical field that
Right.
during the pandemic and everything. But got through that and everything. So everything's been really good, and just kind of made the decision to dip my toe back into wrestling a little while back, and kind of seeing where it goes.
And I was going to ask you about with the continuing your education and stuff. Was that through the WWE scholarship that they had given to former talent? Was that how you kind of got that going?
No, I mean, I was already doing a lot of education and had plans to. That was just a little, I guess, a little extra from
A
them
piece.
at the time. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't due to it or anything like that. I was always doing that in that direction. But that opportunity came up, and very, anybody that's done any medical school, and it's a small little tiny drop in the ocean, I guess,
Yeah.
at the time.
I, I
So
I love hearing those stories of guys from outside of the ring, though, too. The different stuff that they do in their lives. Because unless you're in one of the companies full time that's on TV, you're doing something else.
yeah, and for a lot of people, they don't, they plan for it afterwards, or they weren't doing it before, or it's hard to let go for a lot of them. It's hard to not kind of chase that next thing. And for me, at the time when I finished with WWE, there wasn't the amount of opportunities around. I'd kind of come off a run there, and just decided that I wasn't going to kind of go down that route and chase that, step away. And if opportunities came up in the future, then that was fine, but I wasn't going to chase it. So you've always got to have a plan, and some normalcy, I guess. You have that life, you kind of want to get back to normal. Some people don't, they stay in it and everything. But for me, I wanted to establish something else, and not just be known as a wrestler, to be honest.
What made you get the bug to get back into the ring in 2023?
Well, I'm a father of four, so my kids obviously come into it, and you've got to, think about, anytime you're getting back into something or doing something like that, you've got to think how it's going to impact, all of that and everything. But what it came down to was, I've taken, really good care of myself, and healthy and fit and everything. And I kind of like looked, following the scene a little bit, and kind of looked at, my time in WWE. I don't look back with a lot of, yeah, I guess pride is the wrong word, but I felt like if I had the opportunity to maybe make a different legacy for myself in wrestling, something I can look back on, and be, even more proud of, I should probably take it. And so I kind of, toyed with the idea of, maybe dipping my toe back in, as I say, and see how I felt, and everything felt great, and just kind of went from there. I initially wrestled first of all back in, this past September, basically because one of my 7-year-old never seen me wrestle, so that was kind of a reason for that, for him getting to see me live, and that was a lot of fun for him. And then just kind of, I guess, snowballed a little bit from there. And we're in wrestling, but you never really lose that itch, or want to kind of get involved again. And kind of the NWA kind of opportunity came forth. And if I was going to do it, I was going to try to do it on somewhat of a higher level, a bigger scale. So I was kind of interested in that when it came about.
And I think people, once they hear Paul Burchill's back, they're like, Paul Burchill. For me, it was funny because I was actually just talking to a friend like the week before that I saw that you had made a comeback, and I said something about your WWE run, and then I went on social media like 2 days later. I was like, there he is. Like,
Yeah.
who knew? So, just what was the connection with you linking up with the NWA?
Well, I've got I followed them for a while. They've been sort of something, I had a number of years there where I really didn't follow anything, and not through any lack of interest. It just, life is happening, and you just kind of get busy, as you should, and focus on a lot of things going on there. But I've been following it for a few years, and was always really interested in. And when they first kind of came about, with the new company, I was, it's very interesting, and I've got a number of people there at the company that I'm good friends with, and I've stayed in contact with a lot of people over the years, and just kind of generally followed it, and it's been an interest. And then when it was came about that I was going to be wrestling again, I got connected to a couple people, and just kind of one thing led to another, and some conversations and interest, and just kind of back and forth, and just felt that let's give this a go and see if this is beneficial to each, I guess. And it's so far so good, and kind of came in, and had a really, really great experience with all the guys there, and felt very welcome. And I know I had been told by the people I knew that were there, was just, this is a great locker room, it's a great place, it's a great place for guys, like me and stuff. And they were right. It was great. I really enjoyed it. So, as long as you're enjoying it, and it's something that's challenging and interesting, then why not, kind of thing. Keep going forth with it.
A former OVW wrestler, Vic Delicious, mentioned to me, he worked a little bit for NWA too, and he mentioned to me that the NWA locker room kind of had the shades a bit of an OVW reunion, because there were so many people who were there in OVW. What kind of an impression did that period, the OVW, have on you in your career?
I loved that period. Like I think I had a time there where I really had a really good run of things, successful run, and kind of what I learned at the time. We had a fantastic locker room. It was just very, very together. Everybody sort of after one goal. A lot of guys were there when they obviously signed with WWE, but you were focused also on what you were doing weekly. I mean, we were working 4 or 5 days a week on these live shows, putting time in, and just the learning experience is fantastic. And then, for myself, to get to be down there, and you take on the role as a locker room leader, and, helping kind of, I guess, running shows, and running the place down there with, the other people, and it just was a great experience. So enjoyable. When I first came to the States, it was, quite a shock. Culturally, it was a lot different than I thought it was, but I've become very comfortable. And with it being based in Kentucky, I love from Kentucky, so we had a great time down there, and it was good, and the TV show was great, well written. Got to kind of learn to kind of be a champion down there, and what that involves, and working with some great guys, and just had a time of my life down there.
And the scene in WWE developmental has changed so much now. The way that things have evolved over time with the start of the WWE Performance Center and all the different coaches they have there. Their television show isn't on like a local channel; it's on network cable now. The NXT brand. It's kind of wild to see the ways that whole program has changed over time.
It is. I mean, you can look at NXT, and no one that has been involved in like OVW over the years will let anybody knock their local show, because it was great, and you see what it
Yeah,
produced. And I'm not just talking, the main stars that roll off the tongue. There were a lot of guys that came through there that cut their teeth there. It worked. It was successful. I think the culture was a little different to, I imagine, what it is now, where you were kind of counting down the clock, because you knew, as say a developmental talent or somebody that was trying to get to the main roster, you were kind of on the clock a little bit of getting things going, and I guess the communication wasn't quite the same. You were more focused on, I've got to get to the main roster, as opposed to, I'm here now, let me focus on this, like a lot of people are in NXT. They're NXT superstars, I guess, now, almost before they're WWE superstars and everything. It's kind of, there's a difference there. When you're on the main roster, you're a WWE guy. When you're in NXT or OVW, you're an NXT guy or OVW guy. I think when you're down there, and you're not focused on, and kind of almost job scared, I guess.
yeah.
You're able to focus on the time, on what you're doing then, and that's what you're there to do.
And now
So
they really get to establish themselves as, they're establishing a following before they even get to Raw and SmackDown. What's funny with that with you is that I vividly remember seeing a clip. I mean, it was early, 2000, so maybe not the best video on the internet, but a clip of you doing the C4, the walking the plank, which I think fans now probably know as the Spanish Fly. But
yeah,
you were probably the first guy I ever saw doing that. And
yeah.
was it your style at that size that kind of opened the doors for you getting into WWE?
I think you definitely had something to do. I definitely, impressed them at the time. It was very quickly that I wasn't kind of working in that style. And you have to also always think and remember that, when you're wrestling, you're it's not really, I mean, yes, it's what you're doing between the ropes. Everything's got to be good and slick, and you're the best as you can at your craft, but you're learning to tell the story. And honestly, one of the main things I learned in OVW those years was, the story of the match and what you're trying to convey is more important than what you're actually doing. And I still believe that. Then that's very much, that ties into the current NWA show, really, where it's about storytelling. Can someone turn on the TV and know who is who, and say what their role is immediately? A lot of the time nowadays, you obviously can't do that. And the athletic performance in a match is stunning. What you see these days. I just, at the time, I'd always been very athletic, and I'd had an athletic background. I was very agile, so kind of was able to work that into my style and everything. And then over the years, had and tamed that down. Different injury kind of grounded me a little bit, so I kind of had to go a different route. So I kind of made a decision at one point when I was in WWE to just kind of turn up my aggression, just because I wasn't doing the amount of flying around or anything like that, and learned that was more effective in conveying what I was trying to convey at the time.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too. I think NWA, for where it fits into the 2023, 2024 kind of wrestling industry, is more of that storytelling and maybe not so much of an emphasis. I mean, you look at every wrestling company nowadays, you're going to find great people and great performers everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
it's can you connect an audience to what you're doing, and not necessarily can you wow them with, you know, the moves.
Yeah, and it's about, for I think, for people, is finding what works for you. Don't try to be something that you're not, or something that you're a watered down version of something. Now, the like I said, the athleticism and the talent is incredible. It's a completely different um, industry and different company in the bigger company, like a WWE or something else, than when I was there or anything like that. And that's not to say that anything is better and worse than the other, but these days, I think the NWA product works well, and like with anything, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, I guess is the best way of putting it. But we don't have a lot of time in our lives in general, and everybody's got kind of a short attention span. A 3, 4, 5 hours of wrestling each week. I don't know many people that are established with families, or people that were watching mid 2000s and have that much time to really digest and watch and pay attention and follow. But a 45-minute to an hour long show where you can switch it on, and I'm going to see some good solid wrestling, and I'm going to see men hitting each other, and tough women and tough guys kind of really kind of looking like they're fighting and wrestling. And for me, as a fan, I'm sure if I were just watching, that would be appealing. I in talking to some of my peers at NWA, we kind of very much emphasize, we try to bring across that it's some grown men fighting, and that would be appealing, I feel, to the guy sitting there at home, who doesn't have 6 hours a week to watch, but wants to get his fix of wrestling, and wants to sit there with somebody that, say, isn't as attuned to wrestling as they are, and be like, "Yep, this is wrestling," like the NWA always was.
What did you enjoy about being in WWE in your years there?
Um, the camaraderie, the locker room, the friends I made. It's at the time, as with a lot of people there, you're very focused on staying there as opposed to enjoying the moment, and almost stepping outside of what the norm is to basically stand out. And I think at the time, you don't stop to smell the roses enough, and I think a lot of people will say that. And you'll always hear people saying about their time there, they enjoyed it or they hated it or this and that, or I didn't get an opportunity. Now there's plenty of times where you look at someone there and you're like, well, that person, they got they got the rocket strapped to them all the way, and this person, why couldn't they see what a star they were, or why didn't this person get the opportunity? There are times where you look at people, maybe they were a star somewhere else, and you're like, why are they not seeing it in them? Why are they kind of hamstringing this person and not giving them the amount of exposure that they should? But honestly, by you being let in the door each week, you get an opportunity. And I think at the time, the culture for a lot of people, a lot of us, and I'm sure it still is I just need to stay here and try to try to try to maintain my position here, and do what I can, as opposed to, wow, this is where I am. How do I step outside of the norm and what's outside of my comfort box, and stand out? But there's that thought of like, I don't want to stand out too much. I don't want to be too different. And in case it upsets the wrong person, and I'm sure it's like that in most companies or anything, but it was definitely, the people I met and the relationships, I forged and everything. And then afterwards, you kind of look and you're like, wow, there's a lot of travel, and I probably didn't take in probably didn't appreciate some of the cities and places I went to enough, because you were kind of in and out, and you kind of get in this rhythm of, if it's very weekly, and it becomes this just slog for a bit. But definitely, the different characters and relationships I made
Yeah,
were
definitely. Very interesting. And so you find out you're becoming a pirate. Obviously, it's very memorable for fans who were watching back then. You get that persona. How do you approach something like that and make it work for you?
well, at the time there was not it wasn't quite as easy to get all of the attire that you would need, but I sort of came home, was like, yeah, I'm going to, said to my wife that I said, I'm going to be a pirate, this is the idea. And then she just went to work for the next week, calling, gosh, museums and all these different places to get the apparel to try and put this thing together. It was kind of, with anything like that, and guys will tell you that, it was kind of down to you to pull it together and turn up with it kind of ready to go. And that was interesting time and quite challenging to switch almost in the course of a week, completely 180 your direction and your look, and come up with this new persona. So it was kind of challenging, but and again, with very little direction. You weren't it wasn't like it in terms of a lot of things. With my time in the company, you were very, I guess, overproduced. You were kind of relying on this brain trust to kind of come up with things that weren't you. And there were times though where it was kind of all down to you to kind of pull something together without any kind of guidance, and hope that it was what they were wanting. So that was always kind of a concern, that, okay, is this what they're wanting? Is this what I'm doing? I remember the first time I did the first backstage skit. Mr. McMahon pulled me aside. He's like, "Well, it's really good." I said, "But it's a little too funny." And I look, and I literally looked and said, "I'm dressed as a pirate, and there's midgets. What cannot be funny about this?" He's like, "Oh, Stone Cold Steve Austin was he was serious, but then he was funny." And I go, "I'm dressed as a pirate. Like, what are we doing here? Like, am I really taking myself that seriously, or have I kind of cracked a little bit?" Sort of, there was always this kind of like, what is it you want here?
Yeah.
So I look back, and there's things I would have done differently. I enjoyed it. It was great. I'd love to have gotten. It was going to evolve in a more edgier kind of look and character at the time, and it just kind of I could have evolved it more, and we could have evolved it more and everything. It didn't hurt that I pretty badly injured my knee on the day that we were debuting the character in the ring, when I was showing, I was running through my entrance, and I blew my ACL and MCL out just doing a run through on my entrance. So that night was really interesting, with a destroyed knee, and then kind of went along from there, and it was you had a conversation that evening with somebody higher up in the company of, well, you could go get your knee fixed, but I can't guarantee the spot's going to be here when you get back. And that kind of told me enough that I should probably just bear with it while I can. So to this day, never got the knee fixed, and I was super thankful for that advice at the time. So
If you could have chosen what version of you was presented to the North American audience, what would you pick? Would it be more of what the Ripper was?
It was the Ripper when I was in OVW and I was the heavyweight champion. That was what we were going for, and there were a couple times where that was what I was going to do on ECW, and a couple of different ideas, and almost ones that almost happened and everything. and that would have been a perfect way to present it there. It was a very kind of, use the word tweener type character where, it was more, and I remember talking to like Al Snow back when I was there, and he said, whether you're a villain or a good guy, said it's circumstances. So it was kind of week to week. It just, they just knew when my music hit, it was going to be a war. So it kind of got pretty over with the crowd and kind of connected with people, and people kind of liked that more just ruthless person, and that would have been a really good way to represent myself. But they just had other directions and everything. So, but it was an enjoyable time, and I really enjoyed wrestling during that time.
Any thoughts on the run with Katie Lee? She's someone I always appreciated as a talent, but I feel like the time when she was popular wasn't exactly right, maybe for women in the business and women's wrestling.
When you're kind of on the roster, and it's easy to get lost in the mix at the time, and it very much is always a case of when you're just there, and you got to remember as well, you've got, say, I guess, writers pitching ideas and everything, but there's people at the time that are the people that they're pushing, or they're being told to push, they're doing this. There were different opportunities, and it definitely put some really good matches together and really got a good run of things. I was very eager to get actually onto that ECW brand, because I felt like it would be a better sort of canvas for presentation, as opposed to being on one of the other shows where you were very limited on your time, and I was getting lost in the mix. I felt if I could get given the time to have time in the ring on TV, and then also promo time and more character development and fleshing out, that it would be beneficial. And that was a great move to go there. I just wish could have kept it going, and the brand had been keeping going. I think a lot of the time things would switch, and one week you'd be like, well, actually we're going to do this and we're going to move. But I definitely had a pretty serious conversations with them during my time there, where they were like, we've had meetings, and you are definitely being pushed forward, and I was going to move a brand and get in a different title picture. But I think, things would always change and 180 at different points and everything. And you kind of didn't have a lot of control over that at the time. But again, you always look back and you're like, gosh, what could I have done differently? How could I have presented things differently? Or who could I have pitched this to? And did I push enough? And you always look back and you're like, well, maybe I could have done this and that. And, you're always going to have, hindsight's always 20/20 and everything. But at the time, I don't think I didn't use my time there. But you always look back and like, I could have maybe done that differently, or worked on that and everything. I don't think you were at the time of thinking like that. Again, it's more of a case of like, I'm here. How do I kind of stay here? And what does this look like? So yeah. It was interesting. But
all right, we're going to move on to something we call the 3 count now. It's going to be 3 quick questions and your answers. So first question, who is Paul Burchill's favorite fictional pirate?
Probably, having young kids. It's probably Jake and the Neverland Pirates. And yeah, that'll probably be my most popular at this point.
Nice. Second question, what is the... Go ahead, sorry.
I don't really like pirates. Like, I'm not like into pirates. Like, it's never been a thing that really interests me in any way whatsoever. So it's just ironic.
This can close the door on the pirate era now. Second question, what's the strangest place you've ever wrestled?
Gosh, we think, we've all got, especially coming up through the British scene, and that there are just some very, very interesting venues. And obviously anybody that's wrestled over there knows about the holiday camps there, or where we cut our teeth, where you're just working. Gosh, you were working up to 10 times a week at these holiday camps where these people go on in England on vacation, and you always hear the Butlins And always interesting. I've more than enough times gotten changed in the kitchen of a miniature nightclub. It's very, very strange. And I remember being in Algeria, and we were in a big stadium and wrestling in a kickboxing ring. And oh gosh, that was just, if you ever wrestled in a kickboxing ring, it's a lot harder than a wrestling ring. And that was quite an interest, especially as my opponent had not a great stomach at the time, and it was trying not to take any bumps. So of course, Muggins here has taken all these bumps on this like almost concrete floor, and it was a real time there. But yeah, the holiday camps were always super interesting. It was a great experience, and gosh, a good way to cut your teeth. It really was. It was a fantastic experience. I've wrestled in some stranger places than that, but I just, there's been so many situations, and anybody in wrestling, the stories that you can tell, that people that are not involved in the business, just their eyes are just wide open, just think, this is crazy town. You're like, yes, it is literally like crazy town. It's like we're the island of misfit toys sometimes.
Very nice. And then the last question, if you had to show someone 3 Paul Burchill matches to introduce your work to them, what would you pick and why?
I'd probably pick my next 3 matches, actually. I'm definitely really excited about the next few months, kind of what's coming up. And I really feel that my style and what I'm doing will be different than what we're seeing a lot of right now. I really have kind of tried to do something different. My presentation of myself, how I work in the ring, and how I come across is going to be different, and it's myself. I'm not going to hide from the fact that I'm a father. I'm a very proud family man, and I'm coming off a career as a firefighter, paramedic. I'm still in the healthcare field. I came off a very difficult time during the pandemic, doing 72-hour shifts at times as a firefighter, because we were just getting decimated at the time. As opposed to somebody telling me that, oh, this is what you're going to be or who you are. I'm just me. And honestly, this is about creating a new legacy for myself, and I'm pretty excited.
I am so excited that you're back. I can't wait to see everything that you do. And thank you so much for joining me today on Under the Ring Pro Wrestling Conversation. I'm so glad we got to do this.
I appreciate it. Now I get to go wish my 2-year-old happy birthday.
Happy birthday to your daughter. That's amazing.
Exactly. So it's going to be fun. But I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It's always fun to kind of talk about stuff. There's always so much to talk about, and you always, you always get like a small little snippet whenever you talk about these things.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.